Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. Today's video is going to be basically me rounding up my entire opinion on update 1.29 that almost felt like it was kind of split into two parts. So we had day one, which was kind of the implementation of all the tracks, all the events, cars and such, and then day two, when PSVR 2 released, was kind of like the second part of the update in kind of my opinion and the way I felt about it. So now, after spending a bit of time, well, with the entire update, doing PSVR as well, I'm going to give you my entire opinion on really what I think about this update as a whole and really where Polyphony now need to go after this update. So what I'll do is I'll go through section by section and give you my entire thoughts on each section. So we'll have like events, cars, tracks and such, and then at the end I'll kind of give you my overall opinion, and then we'll kind of talk about, like I said, where we want GT7 to go from here, because I feel like it's in a certain position right now. So first up, let's talk about the events. We had around about 6 events for this one. We had the oddball one for the reason to basically use the Citroen at Laguna Seca, and then we had 5 on the brand new Grand Valley Highway 1, which I will touch on later. Overall, in my opinion, these were good events in the case that you can really, use a diverse selection of vehicles, but at the same time it felt like a missed opportunity. Now myself, I'm a classic GT player. I've been playing all the way since back in 1999 when it comes to Gran Turismo 2, and on all of the classic games pretty much they always seem to be a really long endurance race at Grand Valley. And obviously the track's back. Yes, it has a different look and a different name, but kind of the layout and the way it kind of works is very, very similar. So for them to not go and put a proper endurance, a proper meaty race in, felt like a massive missed opportunity to really do a bit of a throwback to the old times. The longer event of the bunch is the 10-lap Group 1, and in all honesty, it absolutely flies by. Overall, it was a very, very fun event. The whole day into the evening cycle, watching the flames come off the Group 1s and such is very, very awesome to experience. But again, just like when they did Road Atlanta, it needs expanding to be a longer event and a better paying event, or else people are just going to kind of wander off from these events, do them once, and then that's going to be that. Overall, probably a 6 out of 10. Next up, let's talk about the 5 brand new cars that we got with this update. One of them was essentially a variant car, but I will still touch on it. It's a wavy little note about that car later on. So we had the Ital Design off-road version and we had the Ital Design street version. 2 different versions of the same VGT. No interior design, which seemed like a massive missed opportunity, because especially with the VR coming out, I just felt like they would have really gone to those lengths. They are pretty good. The street version is a bit meh, but the off-road version can get a very, very good 700 pp build on it. Then we had the Citroen DS21 Palace, which is just an awesome little car. Yes, it's slow as hell, but it is a very, very funny kind of meme car. We had the Porsche Carrera 2.7, the RS. Stunning machine, lovely car to drive. Glad to have this one in the game. And then we had the kind of main I guess hero car of the update, which was the Honda RA 272, which is absolutely amazing and straight up there. It's one of my favorite cars in this entire game, and again, it's a great 700 pp grinding car. So at first, when these were all announced and we managed to figure most of them out, apart from the Ital Design, which I think caught everybody by surprise, I think we all thought that was the Genesis. When I finally got my hands on them in the game, I kind of went from being meh to, do you know what, not bad. So to be quite honest, from a driving perspective, these are some of the best drivers cars I think we've had in quite a while. The Honda's fantastic. It's pretty much one of the most, I guess, versatile cars in the entire game. The fact that its fuel consumption is so good, you can grind with it, and it just looks very, very cool. It's a very unique car, being a classic Formula 1 car. The Porsche, again, I love the car in real life, but I didn't know how it would feel within GT7. Thankfully, it feels very, very good. The Ital Designs or VGTs, the off-road one, is much better than the street, which just feels like a complete throwaway car. And the Citroen DS21 Palace is just a cool little classic meme car. Overall, to be honest, 6 or 7 out of 10. Next up, we have Sophie. Finally, PlayStation 5 players managed to get their hands on the chance to race Sophie, with the Race Together event coming into the game, and basically 3 different difficulties over 4 different courses, as well as a 1-to-1 on each of those 4 courses, those being Tsukuba, Alsace, I really don't know how to pronounce that one, I really need to look that one up, Trial Mountain, and Suzuka. Overall, it was fantastic, to be quite honest. To see Sophie in action and actually doing what it was supposed to do was an absolute blast, massively enjoyable. Whilst I was a little bit disappointed in the way that it kind of goes by nerfing your car and bringing you more in line with Sophie, it really didn't give you the maximum difficulty when you was pack racing. So the kind of like green and red were completely pointless. They just again felt like typical Gran Turismo 7 AI, in which like they were a bit of a roadblock. Blue and purple definitely gives you a bit of a fight and a bit more reason to really enjoy these events. I felt they were a bit on the easy side for someone that kind of plays this game a lot, but overall the 1v1 is really where it's at if you want to see Sophie absolutely going for it. Putting you in equal cars with Sophie is just a ton of fun. It provides a proper challenge. You can really see what the AI can do, the way it can kind of, you know, do cutbacks, defend, follow your slipstream. It's really the kind of AI that I don't think I've ever seen within a racing game before. And to be quite honest, I said it in my video about Sophie, it races better than 95% of the drivers online. It really is a joy to drive against, and it's great to finally get it implemented, even if just for a limited time. Next up, I want to touch on the brand new track that we got, a bit of a controversial one for reasons I'll kind of explain. I do want to do a full video on this track eventually and kind of get a proper discussion going. So Grand Valley Highway 1, it is essentially Speedway just with a completely new look and a whole different feel. In fact, although the layout's very similar, to be quite honest, when you're just driving around on it, it definitely doesn't feel anything like Speedway. It has a few kind of throwbacks to it, kind of the bridge, yes it's different, some of the tunnels and such, yes they're different, but you can tell it's kind of got a Grand Valley vibe to it. But overall it really does kind of feel like its own separate thing. It kind of feels like an alternate universe version of Grand Valley, and to be quite honest, I'm okay with that. So to be honest, as someone that's been there since the PlayStation 1 days, nostalgia can really get in your way of expectations sometimes, and I myself was one of them, where I was kind of in denial that this was essentially the Speedway that we got. But the more I've kind of settled into playing this track, it's actually a rather fun time. If you take it for what it is, as a modern day, prettier version of Speedway, then to be quite honest, you'll probably enjoy it more. You know, I try myself not to be blinded by nostalgia. If I do that, then I'm just going to be, you know, completely biased towards everything of old, and sometimes we just have to move forward. As much as I loved Speedway, it was never, in my opinion, the prettiest track. What they've done here is really made this track for now next gen, and quite obviously VR. You know, the timing of the release is too perfect for it not to be very much a VR heavy track. So overall, I honestly really do like the track. You know, if you just take that step back, you know, even if you guys that have been there since day one like me, who might not particularly like it, if you just take a step back and just try and enjoy it for its own thing, then I definitely feel like that is the way to go. And that's kind of the way I've gone about it. And the more I've raced on it and the more I've seen the detail that's actually gone into this track, it's probably really incredible. You know, it's one of the most detailed tracks I think I've seen within a racing game for the longest time, and I cannot fault Polyphony for the way they've gone about with just putting the smallest details in this game. So yes, sometimes nostalgia can get in the way of your enjoyment. Overall, I'd probably have to say a 7. Next up, we're going to have the big thing from this update, PSVR 2 support. And in all honesty, am I disappointed at all with how this has been put in the game? No. To be quite honest, when you're kind of playing it yourself and you're in there in VR, this is just absolutely mind-blowing and incredible. You know, the videos that you see on YouTube really don't do it justice. So first up, let's talk about the showroom. So this is what you're seeing in the background here. It's absolutely incredible, and seeing the cars in the kind of detail that you do is just absolutely unreal. It really does feel like you're sat in the real thing. Definitely one thing that the kind of on-screen footage really doesn't capture is just how insanely detailed these cars are in VR. The fact that you can just look up close, take your time and just take in some of the beauty of some of the most legendary machines ever created is just fantastic. Absolutely loving the VR showroom, much more than I thought I would. Now for the biggie, let's talk about how it actually feels when you're using it and when you're in proper gameplay in terms of actually racing. Now, one thing you may notice if you look around the edges of the screen wherever the kind of VR isn't focusing is blurring. Now what this essentially is to basically save, I guess, processing power from what I've heard on the VR headset. So wherever you're not focusing, it will kind of blur the image, so the quality where you're actually looking is much better, and it is noticeable only kind of at slight times. So essentially, if you really do focus out the corner of your eye, you may notice it, but in all honesty, because of how you use VR, you won't really notice it very often. I've heard a lot of complaints about the VR in terms of blur. Now, what you need to really kind of go into it with the mindset is that this isn't going to look as good as when you're kind of playing it on a, I guess, a normal monitor or TV, let's say. You can kind of tell sometimes when looking into like certain details in the background, really where it's kind of toned down, but what you're actually focusing on when you're racing and such is always, honestly, it feels crystal clear. It's very impressive. I have heard different complaints about blurring and such, but I think those are people that are not getting the headset kind of set up correctly. That is a must. If you are going to use PSVR 2, take some time, get your settings properly set up and calibrated to, well, you, and in all honesty, it will probably be one of the best experiences you can ever have within a racing game. And that's what I really need to say about PSVR is it is fantastic. It is one of the most immersive experiences I think I've ever had in any racing game. It really gives GT7 a whole new lease of life. It feels like a completely different game entirely. And I did try this setup with the rig, and I can say, although there was almost wires everywhere, it really does just take the immersion to the next level. It's almost like driving these cars in the real world. It's very impressive. In terms of actually driving in VR though, one of my favourite times to drive is in night or sunset. This is when GT7 in VR looks absolutely fantastic and just cannot be matched. It's absolutely incredible. In all honesty, the first time I drove at night, I had to kind of just pull over and just stop looking around. There was kind of fireworks going off in the sky, the lighting, the kind of lights that come off the cars as they go past. It was just absolutely phenomenal, and I really cannot give credit to Polyphony enough for actually doing this for a console racer. It really is impressive, and definitely something that, you know, even if you can't afford it now, if it ever drops in price or anything like that, it is all honesty just something that you really need to experience for yourself. And that's what I'd say to anyone. It's something that if you don't suffer from motion sickness, which to be quite honest definitely is very good in this game, because you're sat in one spot, I haven't noticed much in terms of motion sickness. But yeah, definitely you need to get your hands on this. If you can't afford it now, if it drops in price or you're on the fence, then experience it for yourself. If you've got a friend that might have it, go and experience it with them, see how you get on with it, and if it is to your liking, then definitely jump in. It really does improve your gaming experience. Another little quirky feature I want to talk about is VR replay. This basically came out of nowhere. I'd heard things about it, but I never really thought too much of it. However, it's become one of my favourite pastimes within Gran Turismo 7. Is to just sit there, boot up a replay in VR, and just kind of look at it from a whole different perspective. You know, like you just saw there, the kind of slope on the test track of Alsace, or whatever it's called, is just phenomenal in VR. And in the replay, looking down on it, it's just so steep. It definitely gives you a whole different viewpoint on this game. It's fantastic. The VR replay is just so quirky and awesome. I absolutely love it. For such an unexpected feature, just be able to watch your replays back and just see all the cars flying past, and yeah, it's just a phenomenal experience. So to be honest, PSVR, I'd have to give it about a 9 out of 10. So there we have it. This is my final review on update 1.29. What is my overall opinion on it? Was it a good update? Yes, it was a great update. For what it brought to the table, it did as it should have done. However, this puts Gran Turismo 7 in a certain spot, I'd say. So some people may absolutely love this take and some people may absolutely hate me for it, but I am going to give you my honest opinion. I feel like GT7 has been playing catch up for this whole year. So what I mean by that is I feel like Sony might have had a hand in kind of rushing this game out as it was, cutting a bunch of content, because it's kind of common knowledge now that a lot was cut from the final release of this game and then basically kind of handed back to us in the form of, you know, extra menu books and such. And definitely, you know, Sony may have had a hand in saying like, look, stop, get this game out, let's get it selling, and, you know, we'll kind of update it from there. And that's where I've always felt like GT7 has been at. However, in my opinion, we now officially have all the main features in the game. So the likes of selling cars, PSVR 2, all being implemented into the game, which must have been kind of more long-term plans, especially the PSVR 2, you know, that would have took a lot of kind of, you know, working out and getting it entirely in the game and, you know, sorted out, ready for release. It must have been a long time in the works. All that kind of stuff is now in the game. So what Polyphony need to do, in my honest opinion, for the next 6 months to a year is focus on essentially quality of life changes and adding proper content. So what I mean by that is essentially make things like the engine swaps and the tuning parts buyable. They all have price tags attached to them. I've argued this point for absolutely months about it, and it's definitely something that needs to be sorted. Quality of life in terms of the lobbies, so make them more stable, fix them. You know, you've proved that you can do things with them. You added qualifying to them, especially the community ones. So, you know, definitely look into making them more stable and where they should be. And then definitely focus on the event. So bulk this game up, give it the content it deserves. We've got all the features we need in this game. Now we just need more content to go and absolutely smash out. And honestly, this will be one of the best numbered title Gran Turismo games pretty much ever made, in my opinion. Maybe not as good as, you know, my personal bias, which is Gran Turismo 2 and Gran Turismo 4, but it definitely could be a very, very good title if it was definitely bulked up. And that's really, in my opinion, where I think Polyphony now need to turn their focus. They've got the features in there, they've played catch up for a year, so let's get more and more content put within this game so we have more and more to enjoy.